What's happening, YouTube? Welcome. Happy Tuesday. It's 9 o'clock. Now, I just want to jump straight into this and say this is the Last of Us episode 2 review done by the Killer Comics. This is going to be happening every single Tuesday at 9 o'clock. So, this is a spoiler-filled review. So, if you haven't seen the latest episode of the fantastic Last of Us show, don't watch this show going forward. Wait until you've watched it and then jump back in on the rewind and let me know what you thought, because we've got spoilers galore. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to try and do my best because I'm on my own this week. But yeah, I'm just literally going to take it all from there. Thank you very much, Panas and Pints, for joining. Thank you very much, ABZ, for joining. It's all new to me. This is the first time in ages that I'm doing a show on my own. So I think it's only best that we just jump straight into it. So, what can I say? The Last of Us episode 2 aired in the United States on Sunday and it aired last night in the UK. So as I mentioned, if you haven't seen it yet, this is going to be spoiler filled. So either mute it for the whole of the show or jump back in and watch the rewind when it finishes. And you can watch it tomorrow, post a comment, and you can tell me what you thought until your heart is content. But this was a fantastic episode. It was the episode 2. It's called Infected. This review is going to be full of spoilers, Easter eggs, and much, much more. Now, jumping straight into it, right, we have. So, this is a panel, an image that was sent to me by my good friend Sean, aka Panels and a Half Pint. Now, we mentioned last week that the game was potentially going to skyrocket with people who haven't played the game before, that started watching a TV show and stuff like that. So, it was either going to go. I was going to jump on a computer game and it was going to skyrocket, or the TV show was going to get the old game players wanting to play it again. This slide here just basically sums it up. The Last of Us sales rise as much as 322% after the HBO series premiere. I think it was inevitable. It was going to happen. It's one of the greatest games ever made on the PlayStation. And I think it just goes to show that if something's done well, everyone's going to reap the rewards. I mean, this episode 1 last week drew 4.7 million viewers, which basically means that The Last of Us on HBO is the second most watched premiere in HBO history, literally coming second behind House of the Dragon. Like that's their top two, House of the Dragon and this Last of Us. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Like we're only 2 episodes in, but you can just see it going from strength to strength. So if we just jump literally straight in. So obviously last week's episode ended on a cliffhanger of Tess, Joel and Ellie trekking through a war-torn, deserted, totally run-down America after what's happened. But the pilot episode, that was kind of one scene. We kind of get to understand Joel, we kind of get to understand Ellie, understand Tess, and we see a bit of Sarah and how everything happened. This episode, this week, it kind of begins with a fantastic flashback to 2003 Jakarta, where we kind of meet this woman. She's literally sitting in a cafe. She's enjoying her breakfast. Then all of a sudden, the law enforcement from Jakarta walk in. Everyone in the restaurant, along with me as a viewer, sitting there thinking, what's she being arrested for? What has she done? Has she committed a crime? And I think it even goes to show that she thought she committed a crime because she has no idea what she's done. She has no idea what's going on. And the next thing you know, she's kind of being escorted out of the restaurant. She's sitting in the back of a police vehicle. She's being whisked away to no one knows where. And she's kind of like, am I under arrest? Have I done anything wrong? And they kind of just literally, as blasé as anything, just turn around and say, no, we just needed your help. We just needed your advice and your professional opinion on a very delicate matter. And it's kind of here that we find out that her name is Ayabu Ratner, and she's a professor in, I've had to write this down, she's a professor in mycology, which is basically a scientist who works in the evolution and everything regarding fungi. And that she's basically, we find out that she's been taken to a government facility that deal with mycologists, and they kind of want her to look at a sample of this fungi that they've had because they kind of don't understand what it is. And she kind of turns around and says, yeah, this is cordyceps, and why have you got it here? And they kind of just let her know that shit kind of has hit the fan. It seems to be able to survive in humans. And she's like, this is not going to survive in humans. It doesn't survive in humans. There's no way that it can survive in humans. And it kind of escalates from 1 to 100 pretty quick. Shit hits the fan, and then we kind of get onto the next scene where she's getting all kitted up, she's getting all dressed up, because they kind of want they turn around and say, right, you've seen this sample here, we have an infected person, we have the first infected person that we know about that is infected with the cordyceps. Can you go and pass judgment on it? Can you go and see if you can find out anything more? She kind of ventures in like a fucking hazmat suit, goes in, she's kind of looking at this person's leg. She finds out that there's a human bite, and she kind of subtly turns around to the police officer and says, is this a human bite? And the poor guy is just literally, yeah, yeah. And she kind of takes a step back and thinks, okay, shit's now getting serious. This shouldn't be happening. We're now in a pandemic escapade. This is what's going to happen. And she kind of takes the national procedures of checking the leg. Then she kind of gets the tweezers, the scissors, the forceps, and kind of ventures into the patient's mouth. And we see here she's pulling out the tentacles of the cordyceps. And with that, she kind of drops everything, runs hell for leather out the room, and yeah, we're kind of thrown into it, because after that she comes out and there's kind of a bit of a lull, and she's kind of in like a waiting room. She's kind of reclaiming herself. She's kind of coming by what she's thought, and she's kind of thinking to herself, wow. And as a viewer, I was sitting there thinking, this is very interesting, because this is kind of, now we find out the origin of where the virus started. Like, even in the computer game, we don't find out as much as we do now. And it was very good, because I think Nick Druckmann has done a fantastic job, because obviously he directed this episode. And as we delve deeper into the episode, you'll understand why he had so much to do with this episode, because it's so well written, it's so well directed, and it pairs perfectly part for part with the computer game. So anyway, we're sitting here with Ibu Ratner, and she's kind of sitting there, and the police officer saying, right, so you've seen what we're dealing with. What is the actual vaccine? How can we deal with this? And she kind of just literally turns around and says, there's nothing you can do with it. There's no vaccine. There's no one's going to survive this. And very matter of fact, she literally just turns around in a proper chilling moment that literally got the hairs on my neck standing up, and just literally turns around and says, bomb. Start bombing, bomb this city, and bomb everyone in it. If that doesn't scare the hell out of you, then I don't know what will, because it's done in such a manner that it's straight to the point, it's chilling. And I think the fact is that where the subtitles are played in this part, where you have to read the subtitles, you're more engaged with what's going on, and you kind of just think, wow, shit's getting serious now. Shit is getting serious. And I kind of just want to say, like, straight off the bat, if you've played the computer game, you will know that you're not going to be too surprised by what's happening in this. There's not going to be many surprises for people that have played the game in this episode. But if you haven't, I'm very excited to see how you experience this and how you deal with this, because there's things in here that you're going to be seeing for the first time, and without the context of the game, even as someone who has, I was still surprised with how they did it. I was still surprised with how they wrote it and how they directed it. But it was fantastic. This intro, it's going to be interesting to see if every single episode is going to start with a flashback, or it's going to end with a cliffhanger, because it's like a chapter of a game. And I think I read in the paper this week that Nick Druckmann is they're very much focused on the season 1 telling the whole story of the first game. So it's going to be interesting that season 2 will obviously tell the story of the second game, and then we can get a conclusion whether it goes into season 3 and the game comes out in part 3 as well. That's going to be interesting. So it's going to be very, very very tight-lipped, and to see where this all goes. So after the whole facade with Iba Ratner and everything like that, we jump back into the present. So obviously it's 2023. We're back here. We've got Ellie, we've got Tess, and we've got Joel. They've kind of made their way. They're still trekking through America. They've kind of found a place to get their head down for a couple of hours. And Ellie wakes up to a shock of Joel and Tess just sitting there, guns aimed at them. And she's kind of like, what the fuck? I've literally, I'm not going to do anything. You've got the guns. You know I've been bit. You know I haven't died. I haven't transformed. I haven't changed yet. So you're still sitting there like watching me on guard. And I think the good thing about Bella Ramsey is that she plays Ellie in such a way that she brings some comedic value to a very somber and quite devastating TV series. And it's kind of good to have that little bit of highlight, that little bit of fun, and a little comedic value that kind of just now and again you kind of want to laugh at some of the quips that she comes out and says. So obviously here we are. So we've got this. So yep, Ellie, Tess, and Joel, they're all sitting there. They're all getting prepared. They're all kind of talking about how they're going to go on. And Joel still doesn't trust that Ellie's not going to change. He still can't get the fact that bad things happen. He still can't live in the fact that, you know what, maybe this might be the time that the vaccine is readily available. She might actually be the cure. So the bond between Tess and Joel is good to see, because it's the good cop bad cop between towards Ellie, and it's endearing. It's quite good to see, because obviously Tess is the brains of the operation, where she really relies on Joel to be the brawns and the muscle of the operation as well. So yeah, so they're sitting down. They've kind of had a rest before they continue trekking to the checkpoint of meeting the Fireflies. Now, when they do set off again, they venture out, and they're kind of walking again across a war-torn Boston, America. And as you can see from this slide here, shit's gone to absolute pot. There's fungi everywhere, there's moss everywhere, it's derelict, absolutely derelict. And they're kind of happy as days, just walking along. The trio of them are walking over the motorway. And it's here that we kind of get to, I guess it's kind of like an introduction to the clickers without even seeing the clickers yet, because we hear a far off scream. We're not sure what it is. And the panic kind of sets in, that they're out of these four walls now. They're out of their safety net. They're on their own. They don't know what they're walking into. They literally have no idea what they're walking into. And it's that scream from the clicker that you kind of think, right, this is the episode now. We're kind of going to get introduced to the clickers. We're going to get introduced to the bloaters. We're going to actually have to see how this continues and how this goes on, because it's going to be a fantastic show. And I have to give a massive shout out to the creative team, because point for point, this has to be the episode that is creatively and visually such an impactful episode, because it's like for like the computer game. You'll see later on as we go through the slides, but what we have here is an exact replica of what is on the TV, is on the computer game. Amazing. So yeah, so they're trekking around, and we kind of get introduced, and it's going to be a touchy hairs on the chest, edge of your seat episode. You can kind of see that from the back, the way it started, the way it's continuing. So they kind of, this for me was a fantastic scene, because again, if you've played the computer game, you'll understand how much this is alike, and you'll understand how much of the computer game relates to this, and how much of the character and what they say relates to what they're doing in the game. So yes, they venture over this motorway, and they reach this hotel. Now, as you can see from this slide here, the hotel is absolutely derelict, it's flooded, and the only way across is to go through the water. Now, once they reach the hotel, which by the way is amazingly set, this is set design at its greatest. Like, what they've done here is absolutely phenomenal, and it's kind of here that they that you realize that once you've played the game, you'll know the references that Ellie makes about not being able to swim, and that it ties in perfectly to the game, because Joel already makes it across, and with Ellie you have to kind of venture up and find a different route to get to the exit. And it's enjoyable, because again, in this, Ellie makes loads of quips about, I can't swim, I can't do this, I can't do that. And again, it's just a little nod to the computer game. So Joel, Ellie, and Tess finally make it across. And once they do make it across to the exit of the hotel, they kind of venture up onto the rooftop. And it's when they get up here that this is such a stark image and such a poignant image, that you kind of really do understand how serious the pandemic is, and how serious these things have affected, like these war-torn areas of everything that's happened. And I've got to say, there's no image, right, as stark as this, which really shows the infected, how the people are dealing with it. Because you're up so high, you can kind of see how much this has impacted everything. And I think the fact that this is accompanied by Tess's chilling, really, really chilling and frightening explanation of how they can operate, how like the cordyceps and the virus can infect people, and how they can all operate by one as one organism, and that it's the slightest thing that if you was to die and fall onto the floor, they would know where you were, and they would it would kind of be their senses, and they would find out where you were, and they would kind of just flock to you. So that's how in depth this cordyceps is. This is how deep the vines go underground and everything. And it's kind of with that, they kind of have to take a long cut or a shortcut. They decide on the shortcut because faced with the aftermath of this, no one wants to fucking go through that. I'm telling you now, I would not want to go through that. So they kind of decide on going through the shortcut. And after they decide to go on a shortcut, on a little merry walk they go again, as the three of them seem to be. They kind of... No worries, Triple G. Yes, sorry, mate. This is spoiler filled. I'm doing my best to kind of give out as many spoilers as possible because me and Sean struggled a little bit last week. But I kind of, yes, this is a spoiler field. So give it a watch on Thursday, mate. But thanks for joining anyway. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to TLOU, ABZ, and Panels and a Half Pint. Thank you very much for joining. So, yes, so they go on a little merry walk again. They've come out of the hotel. They've ventured over the bridge. They've left all the fucking zombies and viruses on the floor. They've kind of gone the long way or the short way, I can't remember. And they come to the museum. Now, again, this is a poignant part of the computer game because this is where they kind of venture in. It's very dark, it's very derelict, you can't see the hands in front of your face, so they're very cautious about how they do it. And they come up to this door. And now, as you can see for this, the cordyceps, the virus has already started spilling. It's already started spreading everywhere. And if I was them, I'd be like, I'm going through there. There's absolutely no fucking way I'm going through there. One, I'm probably going to end up getting bit. Two, knowing me, I'm as clumsy as anything. I'll trip over that. And three, it just ain't happening. It really, really is not happening. So kind of like when they finally do get there, they kind of venture in, and it's when they enter the museum that they come face to face with the first clicker. Now, for me, this was absolutely harrowing. I mean, in the computer game, right, the actual sound of them and like sneaking around and trying to hide from them is so immersive. You kind of really feel like you're there. And with this, the way that this is done, it is so realistic. You kind of just feel for the characters that are actually hiding there. You think, shit, how are you actually going to get out of this? Like, how are you actually going to do this? Because as you see there, they're kind of behind. So the clickers, for those of you that don't understand, the clicker is literally, it's been taken over by this cordyceps, this fungi, this virus that's literally terrorized their whole body. And it's kind of just overtaken the body. Some of them can see, some of them can hear, and some of them can kind of just sense where you are. The clickers are the ones that can't see, so they can hear. They have echelon vision or something. They can kind of hear you, like they have super hearing. So your senses are so heightened with everything in this because you're sitting on the edge of your seat. You're like, oh my god, don't make a move, don't knock anything over. And it kind of goes from here. The three of them, they're hiding, they don't know what to do, and then all of a sudden, boom. This is the first time we actually see a clicker up front, and I think I speak for every fucking single person that viewed this episode this week. This is harrowing. Like, this is harrowing. I mean, I can kind of compare this episode for when they're kind of traipsing through the hotel to when they come to the museum and they meet the clicker for the first time. It's really Resident Evil-esque because when you're Jill Valentine and Chris Valentine in the first ever Resident Evil, it was like one of the first ever games that came out like that. That was on edge of your seat, absolutely shit scary. You don't really know what to do. And there's elements of there that really heighten the sense of your viewing enjoyment watching this, because you're kind of like, Jesus Christ, this is absolutely scary. And this is so realistic that it's even more scary with it being like that. So we kind of come face to face with the first clicker, and I think I can speak for everyone. It's absolutely harrowing. And it's kind of the similarities. Again, I'm going to do some Easter eggs here and like some comparisons, because the similarities on the left-hand side, you've got how it's portrayed in the game, The Last of Us #1, and then we've got the TV show. And as you can see, it's literally pitch perfect, like for like. Like exactly the emotion on Joel's face, the actual hand on his shoulder, everything is like for like. And you know what I mean? It's literally like for like. So to cut a long story short of that part, they kind of deal with the clicker. They deal with the clicker. They've been attacked and they're dealing with it, and they kind of get out slightly unscathed. Slightly unscathed. I say slightly unscathed because it's it's after a near-death experience. They kind of decide to carry on their trek to the checkpoint to meet up with the Fireflies, because obviously we know that Marlene has given over Ellie. She's given him to Tess, and she's given him to Joel to make sure that they get to the Fireflies, because at the end of the day, they want to give her to get their battery, to get things back on track. But it's only upon their arrival to where the Fireflies are that they realise that there is absolutely no hope. There's no hope. There's absolutely no hope at all. Right. But all I do want to say is that once they do get out of the museum, they're kind of sitting on a rooftop. Everyone's a bit knackered. Everyone's a bit exhausted, and they kind of have to make it from one rooftop to another. And as you can see here, the similarity between the computer game and the TV series is literally amazing. I can keep going on about this, and I think it is. I think there's going to be so many comparisons in every single episode. Every single episode, there's always going to be comparisons. But when it's like for like this, it's hard not to. And after what they've just been through, Ellie's like, "This isn't scary at all. This is wood. What we just went through was scary," and it's quite a poignant moment. It's kind of like, for me, it was kind of like two parents watching their child walk for the first time. And Ellie kind of walks over, doesn't even think how high she is, just literally walks over to the next rooftop while Tess and Joe are sitting there. And then they get over to the next rooftop, and they're kind of like, Joel and Ellie share a really, really nice moment here. It's like father and daughter. And Joel kind of turns around and says, "It's a good view, isn't it?" She's like, "Yeah, it's okay." And it's at this point you kind of really understand that Joel is becoming Ellie's father figure, because yes, in the first episode he lost his daughter, and at halfway through the first episode you kind of understand that Joel has literally become a hard bastard. He's lost all emotion. He's lost all emotion. He hasn't really got attached to anyone. But it's in this moment and in this episode that we kind of see the relationship building between him and Ellie, and it's really, really nice to see, because there's one part here where he kind of looks at her as if he was looking at his own daughter. And I think memories are coming back of how much he loved his daughter, and how he doesn't want to be the one that loses another young girl due to him not being able to do what he wanted to do. He wants to take control. He wants to look after, and he wants to make sure that no one else dies on his watch. And I think this is a very poignant part, because it looks like a father looking at a daughter. And this is, for me, this is where the memories set in, because again, here you clearly get to see that Sarah is still in the forefront of his mind. He's looking at the watch. He knows that it's broken. It stopped on 3:10. And it's really nice to see that he thinks, even after all these years, yes, Sarah's died, he's still got some heart. He's still got some care in him. And I think as the episodes go on, we will see the relationship between him and Ellie building, and he really will take her under a wing and do anything that he can to protect this girl. So yes, so as they go on, they enter. Yes. Yes, I know. We're all thinking it. We're all thinking it. We can all see it on the screen. Tess was bitten, right? And if you go back, so yes, so they venture on and they kind of get to where they got to get to. They get to the Fireflies checkpoint, and it's kind of when they get there that there's absolutely no hope. They realise that everyone was dead. Everyone that was meant to meet is dead and buried. They're all gone. There's no one left. So they kind of venture into the building, and they're met with weapons. They're met with it's derelict. They're met with weapons. They're met with bodies, and it's kind of after they kind of realise what the hell they have to do now. This is where it gets really emotional for me. This is where it really, really gets emotional, because this is kind of where the three of them that have started out on this journey, it's clearly become relevant that there's going to be two going forward. And I think this was quite a touching part in the episode, because we know that Tess and Joel have been together. We know that they've got some relationship in some way, shape, or form. But we never really see them be emotional to each other. I mean, at the end of the first episode, we kind of see her get in bed and give him a cuddle and kind of snuggle into him and stuff. But that's as close as it gets. You never kind of see him share a kiss. You never kind of see him share a cuddle or anything. So when we find out that Tess has been bitten, it's Yeah, it is. When we find out Tess has been bitten, it gets really, really emotional. Um, and it's kind of with that you kind of see, yeah, Joel, you can't really see how he's going to deal with it. And it's only when she kind of says, this is my fucking home. I'm not going home now. Like, this is the only, like, I like had to run out sooner or later. And then that's kind of when Ellie cottons on and goes, she's been bit, she's infected. And then we kind of lead on to here where Joel's like, right, let me see the bite. Let me see the bite. And as you'll see on the left hand side, that's the computer game version. And on the right hand side is the actual movie version. So again, they are like for like of how they've done it. And it was, yeah, it was pretty harrowing to see that one of the main characters is literally being killed off already. Like, he's literally being killed off already. And the thing is that Tess's death plays out very similar to how it does in a computer game. But in both versions, Tess is bitten. She's bitten by a zombie encounter, which happens in the museum. And even though she dies in the same way in Boston, in the building, forcing Joel and Ellie to like make it out on their own, in this version, she dies by being attacked by all the zombies and all the infected while Joel and Ellie make a run for it. Where in a computer game, she's literally gunned down to death by the Fireflies. And I've got to say that this death was so much more explosive than it was in a computer game. I think it is because you're so much more emotionally attached to these characters in a TV series than you are in a computer game. It kind of just played out totally different, and it was really, really emotional. And yeah, I for one was thinking, wow, this is kind of gone already. Like, how the hell have they just killed her off already? But it's yeah, it's just mental, because then you kind of have a flashback of when Tess explains to Ellie that the infected are actually connected through tunnels, and the tentacles that are underground, that are growing underground, and it's like a large bloody network of vines that, because now that she's infected, potentially they're going to know where she is. And it's kind of after this, we kind of, yeah, that Joe and Tess are kind of talking about it, and he turns around and just looks down to one of the dead fireflies, and his hand starts to twitch. And it's kind of then he shoots him in the head, his hand starts to twitch again, you see the vines wrapping around his fingers, and then it flashes forward to literally a similar panel of the vines wrapping around that hand to wrapping around that hand. And then it goes back to what Tess was saying to Ellie, that because when one of them dies, if a hand touches the floor, the vines will grow through the flooring, and they'll literally send a signal to the whole horde, and they will just come and find them. And that's exactly what they do. They literally, Joel hears like a screaming and stuff, and he can hear the horde coming. They're getting bigger, they're getting closer and stuff like that. And it's when Tess now explains to him that he has to save himself, he has to save who he can. And it's literally, there's no point in trying to save her. She's dead. Her time's up. And it's in this part here, like as you can see in his two panels, Joel doesn't even say bye to Tess. He literally just stares at her, and he basically just turns around and says, yeah, bye, Felicia, and gets the absolute fuck out of there. He doesn't even think twice. He literally grabs Ellie, makes a run for it, does not even give a toss about her, because I think where he has lost someone so close to him beforehand because he took too long to do things, I don't even think he's giving it a second thought. He's literally just going to get up and get out of there as quick as he can. He's going to save himself. He knows that Tess hasn't got a hope in hell of getting out. And after they have this encounter, she kind of literally tips over all these gasoline bottles, and she's like, look, I'm giving you time to get out. I'm literally going to hold them off for as long as I can. Don't even think about it. Don't look back. There's no heartfelt apology from Joel. There's no heartfelt apology from Tess. They literally part ways, and that's it. He literally runs and he goes, and Ellie's like kicking and screaming because she doesn't want to go. But they literally leave. They get out, they leave, and they go. And it's down to Tess. And I tell you now, for the viewers that are watching and for the viewers that have seen the TV show of the latest episode, this has to be one of the most gory, horrific kisses I've ever seen. Right? So as Joel and Ellie are making a run for it, Tess has thrown out all the gasoline. The hordes of the infected have come in, and she's there with a lighter trying to light the gasoline. And obviously, as Sod's Law would have it, she can't get one. She can't get a flame to go. And it's at this point, because she's already infected, one of the infected kind of recognizes her, notices that she's now become one of them, and slowly approaches her. And again, the camera work on this is amazing. They kind of focus solely on Tess, and then it kind of pans out, and it kind of just distorts and goes blurry towards the infected that's coming towards her. And slowly but surely, he comes closer and closer. And Tess is still trying to flick the lighter. And as it gets closer and closer, you see the tentacles come out of his mouth. And he kind of just kisses her in the most horrific, disgusting kiss I think I've ever seen in a TV show. And she kind of can't do anything about it. And at the last minute, she drops the lighter and boom, all hell goes off. It goes off. It absolutely goes off. And it's fucking awesome. Like I've got to say, it's absolutely amazing. Like the way that they've written this episode, the way that they've kind of sorted everything out in this episode, the way that they're not scared to kill off main characters. I mean, they've done it in a computer game, but it's a bit more long-winded than that. You kind of get to bond with the characters a lot more. And obviously, with it being 9 episodes in a TV show, obviously you're going to get things like this that happen very quickly, and you're not prepared for it. Emotionally, you're not prepared for it. But yeah, this was a fantastic episode. I've got to say, episode 2, there were some flaws in it. I kind of felt it was a tad rushed, but it still got to the point. It was still emotionally, it's still an emotionally charged episode. It's still done what it said on the tin, and it's just a wicked. It was just great. And I know that HBO can't have Ellie say things like, Joel, did you know that you can hold L2 to kind of focus on the enemies and stuff like that? But I still kind of want them to do stuff like that. But I do have to say, like, it was fantastic. Even though that Tess didn't die at the hands of Fedra in this, she died at the hands of the zombies. I still think that was a great little twist on a computer game, and I still felt it was fantastic. I thought it was a really, really good episode. I think we're building episode by episode. We're going to start to get a lot more character development. We're going to start to get a lot more exchanges between the characters. In trailer for episode number 3, we get to meet Bill and Frank, and it's them that kind of are going to tie everything together. I think if I'm going to go on the verdict to this, I've got to say that it kind of totally opens up the whole world of horrors for all of us to see. And it's not going to be before long before we actually find out the whole terrifying nature of this whole TV show, the whole computer gaming section. Pedro, Pascal, Bella Ramsey, they continue to grow in the shoes of Joel and Ellie. And I just think it's absolutely amazing. It's a shame that we've lost Anna Torv so well, because she portrayed Tess in such a fantastic light. But it was a short and sweet story. She played it well, but hey ho, that's Hollywood. Your time's up, love. I guess you got to go when you got to go. But this episode was the edge of your seat tension, memorable characters, memorable moments, an engaging backstory that ties in very well with a computer game, and the momentum is going to continue through all the way through. And I've got to be honest, it's an ending that kind of gives Tess one of the more memorable scenes in the 2 episodes so far. But yeah, as you'll see on the screen here, it's a frankly disgusting kiss that kind of pretty validates that. I think Druckmann and Craig Mazin's decision to go with the tentacles, with the way that people get infected instead of the spores that happen in a computer game, that's pretty telling. So maybe we're going to see some more close encounters like this. Who knows? Who knows? But yes, that's episode number 2 done and dusted. And then we got the close up of Tess' eyes here, and then we kind of just see absolutely horrific. So I mean, this is how the episode kind of ends in a roundabout way. We kind of see Tess's eyes. She knows that life's leaving her. This is it. All done. And then we kind of see Joel and Ellie run out the building as his whole set alight, and then it's kind of very somber ending with Ellie just walking off with the flames behind her as Joel kind of looks on and thinks, right, that's another loved one that's kind of gone. I literally have to put my heart and soul into protecting this girl, because without me, she's not going to survive. So yeah, and then I just want to show a screen grab from episode number 3. So this is from the trailer from episode number 3, and as you can see here, as we all know, this is Ellie's knife, and she is now effectively come very up and close and personal with a clicker, with an infected, and as you can see, the tentacles are coming out of the eyes. It's going to be a very, very strong episode number 3. I'm very much looking forward to it. But what I kind of wanted to do was, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a highly charged episode, and For those of you out there that have played the computer game, there are quite a few Easter eggs in this game. Quite a few Easter eggs in this episode. So obviously, I just spoke about the lighter, but if you do look closely at it, the lighter that they use is modelled on Nathan Drake's brother from the Uncharted games, another Naughty Dog production from Druckerman. The Naughty Dog produced Uncharted, and there was two characters in that. There's Nathan Drake and there's Sam Drake, and the Sam Drake character has a lighter which is reflected in this with Tess holding it. So that's another Easter egg that ties back to it. And it's also wicked because during Uncharted 4 A Thief's End, the character that voices Joel in The Last of Us also voices the character Sam Drake in Uncharted. So in a roundabout way, they're all the same characters. They're all tying together. But I thought that was a really, really good Easter egg. There's also another one as well that when you do finally watch the episode, Joel opens the door to the outside world when they start to continue after they've just woken up from sleeping and stuff like that. And I don't know, it might be me, but I really did think it sounded like a clicker. Like the way that it opens, it really, really did sound like a clicker. It was kind of like a somber moment of the what we're looking to expect when we finally get onto the motorway and we finally meet the clickers as well, like that. But yeah, it was the creaking of the door that really, really gave that away. And there's also another one where Ellie jokingly asks, so there aren't any super infected that explode fungus spores on you? And that is a direct reference to the game's bloater creatures, which we will start to see potentially in episode 4 and episode 5. Guys, that's it. That's the review done. It's very hard to do a TV review show on your own, but it's pretty ironic that the Killer Comic Show is formed of 3 people. They're no longer with me at the moment. They're busy doing stuff and other things like that. So effectively, it's the Killer Comic Show, Last of Us TV show review, because there's only me doing it. I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to get through as much as possible. I'm trying to talk to everyone in the chat. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining the comment room. Thank you very much for joining, sir. Thank you for everyone that's joined tonight. It's a pretty short episode, but I mean, as I mentioned, it's quite hard to go on my own. But I think I did it justice. I think I did me well. Guys, as always, thanks for checking in. Make sure you head over to James T. Keegan's review show tomorrow, where he will have a fantastic panel, a plethora of guests that have watched the TV show. So make sure you check that out at, I think it's at 8 or 9 o'clock on his YouTube channel, and then head back to the Killer Comic Show at 9 p.m. on Thursday, where myself, Andy, and Tom will give you the lowdown of the comics we've reviewed from last week. We've got Batman One Bad Day, Bane issue number 1, and we have Scotty Young's fantastic I Hate Fairyland issue number 3. So make sure you head over there and join us on Thursday, where we will be doing comic reviews, we'll be doing killer covers, we'll have some chat to talk about at the topic table, and much, much more. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this Tuesday night. I hope I haven't wasted your time. Well, I hope I haven't wasted your time anyway. But, you know, who wouldn't want to sit here on a Tuesday night and listen to a Cockney talk about The Last of Us TV show in this spoiler-filled review segment? Thank you very much, guys. It's been my pleasure, and absolutely make sure you head over on Thursday night to the Killer Comic Show, 9 p.m, for your viewing pleasure. See you later, guys. Checking in, checking out. Bosh.